the bank. It was Northwest Federal Savings. And they had in the basement of the bank building was a lunchroom, and it was an employee lunchroom for employees. And I had started my radio show in 1970, and we thought, in a way, and Northwest Federal was a sponsor of the radio show, by the way, and we thought as a way to meet some of the people who were listening to the radio show and to help them find the location of our sponsor, we would have an event at the bank itself. Now, I call it a bank, but it really was a savings and loan association at the time. And at that time, there were two different entities, and we never wanted to be called a bank. We were a savings and loan association. But we thought we would have a nostalgic movie night one evening. And we decided to show some Laurel and Hardy pictures. This was in 1971. And so we decided to do it in the basement where the employees had their lunchroom. And so we cleared out all the tables and put up about 70, 75 chairs, folding chairs. And we said it was going to be a free event while the capacity could hold as many as we could take. Seating was limited. We announced it on the radio, and the day came, I think it was a Sunday night, or a Saturday night, it was a Saturday night, when we started our first movie night, which was really a single event planned. And in nothing flat, every chair in the place was filled. There were little kids coming, and they were sitting on the floor in front of the screen. We had one camera, or rather one projector, and there was a line out the door, and people wanted to still come in, and we couldn't get anybody. We had more than capacity, but we couldn't get any more people in there. So we decided a month later to have a second nostalgia night, showing some more of the old-time movies. And some of these were silent comedies, some were early sound comedies, but always short subjects. And this time we said you need to make a reservation. Still, it was free, but make a reservation. But we cut the reservations off at about 125, probably all done in one afternoon while we were on the radio. And we did a couple of more events like that that were very popular with the public. So in early 1972, we thought, a friend of mine who also worked at Northwest Federal by the name of David Denwood, Dave and I thought, what if we were to show these movies every Saturday night? Now, we couldn't show Laurel and Hardy shorts every Saturday night, although some folks would disagree with us. And we started showing a lot of different feature films that you couldn't find anyplace. 1972, no videotape, no DVDs, no VCRs, none of that stuff. And the television stations were not showing a lot of the old black and white movies because color television was big and nobody wanted to watch black and white. So we decided to start showing movies, and we called it the Memory Club in 1972. And in Saturday nights, we would show, we started off with Dancing Lady. Joan Crawford was in that picture. And let me see, I have a note here. That was May the 6th of 1972. That 1933 film, Joan Crawford. We charged $1 a person, and we figured this would help us defray the cost of the films, because we had to rent the film someplace and pay postage to get them back and forth. And so we started doing that. We got a lot of pictures from a place in Chicago, I think, called Films Unlimited. We got some things from the Museum of Modern Art and other places like that. And we had almost every single Saturday night a full house. The first night we did it, on the 6th of May, we absolutely did have a full house. Tonight, for the finale of these Saturday night movies in this bank location, we have almost a full house again. So we're glad to see you here, and I want to personally thank you all for being 38 years of Saturday nights. It's been a wonderful run. We've had a wonderful time. This theater was built in 1978. Northwest Federal was going to expand their original bank building. And they said, Chuck, it's still sponsoring us on the radio. Excuse me. They said, Chuck, what would you think if we built a theater along with our addition? Would you continue showing movies on Saturday nights? And I said, oh, would I? So I was very pleased. At that time, they had said, no one, I'm sorry to say this, but they said to me, no one has done as much for us public relations-wise as you, Chuck, because of your radio show and these movies you've been showing in the basement all these years. Would you join our staff full-time and become a VP in the marketing department for public relations? And I said I would. And as long as I could keep going with my radio show. And they said, absolutely, we want you to do that. So that happened. I came on the staff, and I had a lot to do with the design and the whole idea of this auditorium and where we were going to be. And I insisted on a big stage. I wanted to have comfortable seats. We wanted to have a lobby where we could sell popcorn and candy, but we always said no chocolate because we didn't want chocolate candy on the seats, you know. And no pop inside. But anyway, we started the movies every Saturday night. And then we started them up here every Saturday night. In '78, we opened with Nelson Eddy and Jeanette MacDonald in Sweethearts. And that was indeed a very full house, all wall-to-wall, full house. We started on Saturday night. We had to have a second showing on Sunday afternoon. It was a big Nelson Eddy, Jeanette MacDonald Technicolor movie, so it was great. And we were off and running. Up here, now we could get crowds that was as many as 300 people every Saturday. And we had more than movies, although over the 38 years of this theater and the previous basement films, we have seen just about every worthwhile, and a few not so worthwhile, movies that you would ever want to see. And even when video cassette recordings came out, when they were selling videotapes of movies and all of that sort of thing, we continued to program against that. If a movie was available on VHS, it would never get into the memory club again. We always tried to find stuff that you couldn't see. And that has continued to this day in the era of DVDs and television and cable and all of this other business. They have always tried to show alternate movies and what a success this has been all of these years. And it's amazing, when Northwest Federal Savings merged with Toyland Home in 1982, that was the end of my run with all of this stuff. I decided now it was time for me to leave the savings and loan industry and continue on my radio broadcasts and other endeavors. So for 10 years, I was the guy who brought a lot of movies to all of you, and I was so proud of the fact that even with a different bank ownership, Toyland Home, they continued to show movies on Saturday nights. And a fellow by the name of Mark Prodzinski, who worked for Northwest Federal and who was also working for Toyland, came in here and ran these things every Saturday night. And he and a few others, and they called me once in a while too for some programming ideas. And that continued while Toyland Home owned this organization. That gave way to LaSalle Bank. This was the era of the mergers, you may remember. LaSalle Bank continued, and this became the LaSalle Bank Theater, and they continued with these movies all along the line. And then we had the latest reincarnation of the naming of all of this stuff, and it was the Bank of America. Through those years, the films have been anchored by Matthew Hoffman and Michael Phillips. And Matthew Hoffman is here tonight. Where are you, Matt? Stand up. We're in. Very nice. And through all this, I have to tell you that I was so very, very proud to have these folks carry on. You know, it's very wonderful to have something you started when you were only 1 year old continue to this day. It really is a wonderful thing. And I had the very great pleasure of seeing that sort of thing happen a second time in my life. When I decided to retire from the radio broadcast in 2009, seems like 1990, when Steve Darnell took over the radio show, and Steve is here tonight too. Stand up, Steve, and take it off. This is a bittersweet occasion for me, and perhaps for so many of you who have been coming to these Saturday night movies for so many years. The wonderful thing about movies in here on a Saturday night is that everybody who was in here had something in common, and that was either the experience of seeing this movie again after so many years, or seeing it for the first time with a whole bunch of people who were here specifically to enjoy that movie and know that they were going to experience a little bit of time travel. And so that's been a marvelous thing. Now I know this is really the end of what we started as the Memory Club, which was no membership club. If you listened to the radio show, you were a member of the Memory Club, and so come on in and pay the $1. If you weren't a member of the Memory Club, so what? Pay the $1 and come on in. Popcorn was, I think, 15 cents, and candy was a nickel when we first started up here. And, well, you know the experiences I'm talking about. I was so pleased to be part of it. I'm so very pleased to have been invited to come back tonight to say a little bit to you. This is a good movie tonight to wrap it all up with. We started with Laurel and Hardy movies in the basement, and we end with a Laurel and Hardy movie up here. A couple of them, the short and then the feature from 1934, Babes in Toyland. The big business, 1929, by the way. Stan and Ollie in here in the film based on Victor Herbert's operetta. It was also known and has been released on videotape or DVD as The March of the Wooden Soldiers or Laurel and Hardy in Toyland. In the cast, we have Charlotte Henry, Felix Knight, and Henry Brandon. This film, Babes in Toyland, does not include any of the regular Laurel and Hardy regulars who were in most of those films, like Jimmy Finlayson, who was in here, or Charlie Hall, or the ever-popular Mae Bush. It's 79 minutes long. You're going to enjoy it very much. It's perfect for the holiday season, and it's a perfect way for us to end the last picture show. Thank you very much.